Welcome to another deep dive. If you are someone who genuinely loves to learn, but occasionally finds yourself staring at a screen, just completely paralyzed by the sheer volume of new tools.
Wow, the tool fatigue is so real.
It really is. The new programming languages and frameworks dropping every single day, well, you are going to find a lot of value in what we are covering today.
Definitely.
We are looking at a really compelling blog post published on March 2nd, 2026. It's from a site called qianmeng.org.
Right.
And the post itself is titled Notes on Go Programming Part 04, Restarting My Golang Journey. The author, who goes by Ang, describes themselves as an old software plumber who spends their evenings tinkering with floss.
Which is such a great self-title, by the way.
It is. And just to clarify for anyone not deep in the open source world, FLAW stands for Free, Libre, and Open Source Software.
Exactly.
It essentially refers to software where the underlying code is out in the open. It's free for anyone to use, modify, study, and distribute.
A very community-driven ethos.
Yeah. But we aren't just looking at this post as a dry coding tutorial. The goal for this deep dive is to treat Ang's experience as a masterclass in the psychology of learning.
Because that's what it really is at its core.
Right. How to actually use artificial intelligence without letting it rot your brain, and the practical benefits of embracing intense minimalism in a digital world that just constantly pushes us to overcomplicate things. Okay, let's unpack this.
What's fascinating here is that Ang's journey perfectly captures the modern learner's dilemma.
Yes.
We have access to more information and significantly more powerful automated tools than at any point in human history.
It's overwhelming.
It is. Yet that abundance is often the exact thing that stalls our progress. How do you navigate a new technology without getting buried in the documentation?
Or just giving up.
Right. How do you leverage a tool like AI without accidentally outsourcing your critical thinking? Ang provides a real-time, very vulnerable case study on how to thread that needle.
And it's so relatable.
It's a look at a seasoned professional who hit a wall, paused to analyze exactly why they hit that wall, and then fundamentally rewired their approach to learning.
I want to dig into that wall, actually, because the context leading up to this post is what makes the whole thing click.
The contrast is pretty striking.
It really is. Right before writing this Go programming post, Ang had just spent a massive amount of time learning a completely different, notoriously difficult programming language called Haskell.
Haskell is not for the faint of heart.
No, it's not. And they did it slowly, steadily, and they heavily utilized AI as a helper.
Right.
Ang documented that entire process across roughly 70 individual blog posts.
70 posts, that is incredible dedication.
It's a monumental, slow-burn commitment to learning. But then when Ang pivoted to the Go programming language, which is often referred to as Golang, the process entirely derailed.
Just hit a brick wall.
Exactly. Back in early 2025, Ang made an initial attempt to learn Go. And that attempt resulted in a grand total of 3 posts before it fizzled out completely.
Wow. From 70 down to 3.
Yeah. So you have a massive discrepancy. 70 posts of sustained momentum versus 3 posts and a dead end.
Right.
Ang actually sits down to analyze this failure and comes to a major realization about the role AI played in both scenarios.
And that realization is the cornerstone of this entire post, especially for anyone listening right now who is trying to pick up a complex new skill.
It changes everything.
It does. Ang realized that the way they were interacting with artificial intelligence during that failed Go attempt was fundamentally mismatched to the goal of actually learning.
But wait, let's pause there for a second.
Sure.
Isn't the entire promise of these modern AI coding assistants to save us time and skip the tedious stuff?
That is the marketing pitch, yes.
Right. Like, if I can type a prompt and have the AI generate a working application in 5 minutes, why should I force myself to sit there and struggle through the basic syntax of a new language?
That is exactly the trap Ang fell into, and it touches on the deep psychology of how the human brain actually acquires and retains new knowledge.
Because it's not just about getting the end result.
Exactly. There is a massive cognitive divide between active learning and passive generation.
Okay, break that down for us.
When you ask an AI to generate the full code from scratch, you might get a working application, but you have completely bypassed the friction required to build new neural pathways.
The struggle is the point.
Yes.
Huh.
True comprehension requires that friction. You need to make typos, you need to misunderstand a concept and break the code, and you need to figure out why it broke.
Otherwise, it's just magic to you.
Right. If everything is instantly handed to you perfectly formed, You haven't learned the language. You've simply learned how to prompt a machine.
You essentially become a middle manager for code you don't actually understand.
Precisely. Which brings us to Eng's specific golden rule for AI, which is incredibly pragmatic.
And this is something you can apply to anything, not just coding.
Absolutely. Eng writes that when you are learning a new programming language, AI must be used strictly as a learning tool.
Like a tutor.
You treat it exactly like a tutor. You ask it to explain a confusing error message or to clarify a specific concept, but you absolutely do not use it as a code generator.
No writing the essay for you.
Exactly. Eng argues that the generate everything approach should be strictly reserved for languages you've already mastered, as they put it, over many moons.
Over many moons. I like that phrasing.
It implies deep, seasoned experience. You only let the AI build the house if you already know exactly how the plumbing and the electrical work underneath the drywall.
Because things will break.
Always. And when something inevitably breaks, if you used AI to skip the basics, you won't have the foundational knowledge to fix it.
That distinction makes a lot of sense. You have to get your hands dirty with the pipes before you automate the plumbing.
Perfectly said.
So, applying this new mindset, using AI as a tutor, not a ghostwriter, Eng decides to give Gunnet a try.
A fresh start.
Yeah. The post mentions that for the past 2 weeks, Eng has been tinkering heavily with networking. And as a result, they want to start writing some custom network-related command line tools.
Okay, a practical application.
Right. And for those unfamiliar, a command line interface, or CLI, is basically a tool you run purely through text in a terminal.
No graphical buttons or windows, just text.
Exactly. To build these tools, Eng lays out the current technical landscape and compares 3 major languages: Rust, Python, and Go.
It's a highly pragmatic evaluation of choosing the right tool for a very specific job.
It really is. Let's look at how Eng breaks them down. First, there's Rust.
The current darling of the programming world.
Yeah. Eng acknowledges that Rust is the current heavyweight champion for systems programming. Everyone is talking about it.
But there is a catch.
A big one. Rust is famously strict and complex. If you just want to build a simple text-based tool, Rust might be serious overkill.
Like using a sledgehammer for a thumbtack.
Exactly. Then there's Python. Python is incredibly popular and easy to read, but Eng points out a common frustration, which is dependency management.
Ah, yes. The dreaded package nightmare.
Right. Python often requires you to download and manage a bunch of third-party packages just to get things done, which can quickly turn into a headache.
It gets messy fast.
And that leads Eng to Go. Go is highlighted as a fantastic alternative because it boasts a batteries-included standard library.
That phrase, batteries included, is a crucial concept in software development.
Let's expand on that for a second.
Yes. A standard library is the collection of pre-written code that comes bundled with a programming language the absolute moment you install it.
So it's the tools in the box.
Right. When a language is described as batteries included, it means it provides almost all the tools you need to build standard applications right out of the box.
Like making a network request or setting up a web server.
Exactly. Or parsing text. You don't have to go hunting online to download a dozen extra third-party add-ons just to get a basic program running.
Which saves so much time.
It significantly lowers the barrier to entry and severely reduces the complexity of your project.
And that desire to avoid third-party bloat directly informs how Eng approaches this second attempt at Go.
Learning from past mistakes.
Right. Because in the failed 2025 attempt, Eng relied on a very popular third-party Go library called Cobra.
Which is used a lot for those text-based command line tools.
It is. But this time around, Eng completely rejects Cobra. They want to avoid relying on external code entirely.
Going back to basics.
Eng specifically mentions wanting to see if Go's built-in default setup can handle things smoothly, comparing it directly to Python.
Because Python has a good built-in option for this.
Yeah, Python has a built-in library called argparse, which is specifically designed to handle text commands without needing extra downloads.
Right.
Eng wants to see if Go can offer that same elegant out-of-the-box experience. And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Because the way Eng actually sets up the foundation for this new project is a masterclass in extreme restraint.
It is the absolute antithesis of how most modern software is built today.
I want to walk you through exactly what Eng's setup looks like.
Paint the picture.
To bootstrap this entirely new Go project, Eng opens the terminal and runs a single command: go mod init.
That's it.
That command creates the project. And when Eng opens the project folder, it contains exactly one file, just a single text file called go.mod.
One file.
Now, for anyone who hasn't used Go, a mod file is basically just a tracker. It tells the system what your project is and what it needs to run.
It's the bare minimum configuration.
Right. But the contents of this specific file are what's remarkable. According to Ang, line 01 is simply the module identity, so the name of the project.
Okay.
Line 02 is entirely blank.
Just empty space.
And line 03 just states the version of Go being used. 3 lines of text. That is the entire foundation of the application.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, choosing this kind of extreme minimalism is a profound architectural decision.
It really makes a statement.
It does. Ang notes in the post that Go is a programming language, not a framework.
It's a vital distinction.
It is. A framework is a massive pre-built structure. If you start a project using a popular web framework, the moment you hit initialize, it will automatically generate dozens of folders, configuration files, routing logic, and boilerplate code.
Before you've even written a single line of your own code.
Before you've even had a chance to think about what your app actually does. A framework builds a 10-story skeleton for you, even if you only needed to build a shed.
That's a great way to put it.
Go, on the other hand, just gives you the raw lumber and gets out of your way.
Ang uses a really evocative analogy for this feeling. They write that running that simple initialization command and seeing just that tiny 3-line file is like buying a plot of land or a blank canvas where nothing has been built yet.
It is just open space.
So much potential.
It is open space, which is creatively liberating, but it also places the entire burden of architecture squarely on your shoulders.
True, there's no hand-holding.
When you have a blank canvas, you have to decide where every single line goes, and this is where Ang exercises incredible discipline.
Right, because the temptation to organize is strong.
Very strong. Ang specifically discusses avoiding something known as the standard Go project layout.
What is that exactly?
It's an unofficial but highly popular community guide on how to structure Go applications. It suggests creating a complex hierarchy of nested folders.
So like a folder for this, a folder for that?
Exactly. One called CMD for your executable files, one called PKG for library code, one called internal for private logic.
It sounds like a corporate filing cabinet.
It acts like one. But Ang looks at this massive community standard and decides it is vastly over-engineered for a small console application.
So instead of creating that maze of nested folders to prepare for some hypothetical future where the app gets huge, Ang decides to just stick with what they call a flat structure.
Which is brilliant.
They dump all their code right into the main root directory. No folders, no hierarchy.
This right there in the open.
And Ang explicitly states they will only refactor the code and create folders when the project grows so large that it becomes absolutely necessary to organize it.
That is a direct strike against the trap of premature optimization, which is something we all struggle with.
Oh, constantly.
We frequently overcomplicate our endeavors, whether we are writing software, designing a new workflow for our team, or even just trying to organize our digital photos.
We think we need a professional system on day one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We convince ourselves we need to prepare for massive enterprise-level scale immediately. We build the 10-story parking garage for our one bicycle.
I am absolutely guilty of that.
We all are. Ang is reminding us that it is not only okay, but actually preferable to start flat. Keep all the pieces right in front of you.
Don't hide the work in folders you don't need yet.
You should only introduce organizational complexity when the pain of being disorganized finally outweighs the effort required to restructure. Complexity must be earned.
Complexity must be earned. I think that applies to almost everything we do.
It really does.
Now, to truly appreciate the level of discipline it takes for Ang to maintain that blank canvas mentality, you have to look at the broader context of who is actually writing this.
The author's background is fascinating.
It really is. I spent some time digging through the archives of this qianmeng.org blog, and the sheer volume of output is staggering.
It's a massive body of work.
This isn't someone who just posts once a month when they feel inspired. The archives stretch all the way back to 2011.
Wow. Over a decade.
And in the year 2024 alone, Ang published 732 posts.
That is an average of 2 deep analytical posts a day.
Every single day. And by March 2nd of 2026, the date of this Go post, they had already published 189 posts for the year.
Sustaining that kind of output for a decade and a half requires an extraordinary level of routine.
It really does.
But more importantly, it reveals a mind that is insatiably curious about how systems work, regardless of what the system is.
And the variety of those systems is what makes the blog so delightful to read.
Yeah,
It's not just a dry programming journal.
far from it.
I want to share some of these specific notes on categories because it paints a picture of a true polymath.
Please do.
In the exact same month that Ang is writing about advanced Go libraries and Haskell syntax, they are also publishing notes on fish keeping.
Fish keeping.
Yes. And we aren't talking casual observations. We're talking about part 203 of a series where they meticulously log the spawning cycles of betta fish.
Part 203. That is incredible detail.
And then you click over to Notes on Gardening, which is on part 824,
Oh my goodness.
where Ang is documenting their journey, cultivating bougainvillea plants, and analyzing something called a gelatinous pear.
It is a remarkable juxtaposition.
It really is.
The gelatinous pear sitting right next to highly technical deep dives into Wi-Fi 7 networking protocols and MediaTek routers.
Exactly. You have networking, programming notes on Elixir, Erlang, Python, and Rust.
Such a wide technical net.
But then you keep scrolling and find dedicated ongoing series on meditation, dieting, home improvement, typesetting, and even guitar.
It is a massive, sprawling archive of human curiosity.
But how does this cross-pollination of hobbies actually work?
That's the real question.
How does meticulously tracking a betta fish or a gelatinous pear translate into making someone a better software plumber?
It comes down to the deliberate cultivation of specific problem-solving mindsets.
Okay, tell me more about that.
We often treat technical skills in a vacuum, but the brain doesn't work that way. Think about the patience required for gardening.
You can't rush nature.
Exactly. If a bougainvillea plant is failing, you can't just hit a refresh button on your browser.
Right.
You have to test the soil pH, adjust the watering schedule, move it to different sunlight, and then wait weeks to observe the organic results.
A very slow feedback loop.
Very slow. It teaches you how to methodically isolate variables in a system that absolutely cannot be rushed.
Which is exactly what debugging complex code is like.
Yes. When you transition from the physical world to the digital world and you are hunting down a memory leak in a complex piece of networking software, it requires that exact same mental posture.
You can't just flail around.
Right. You have to isolate variables, observe slow changes over time, and resist the urge to just randomly change code hoping it fixes the problem.
So the hobbies are actually training grounds.
Exactly. The meticulous nature of fish keeping, monitoring water parameters, and observing tiny behavioral changes is training the exact same analytical muscles used for debugging. Tinkering in the physical world grounds your ability to solve abstract digital problems.
I love that perspective. It frames your hobbies not as distractions from your main work, but as cross-training for your brain.
It's holistic learning.
The gardening is literally training the brain for the coding. And it's worth noting that Ang has a disclaimer explicitly stating this blog is a personal passion project, entirely separate from any past or present employers.
It is pure, unadulterated learning for the sake of learning.
So let's distill the core takeaways from Ang's journey that you can actually use.
Let's do it.
First, reconsider how you use AI. Treat it as a tutor, not a crutch. If you are learning a brand new skill, you have to embrace the friction of active learning.
Save the heavy automation and the generate everything prompts for the systems you already deeply understand.
Exactly. Second, intentionally match your tools to your specific task.
Right.
You don't always need to reach for the most complex, popular system like Rust or a framework that builds a 10-story skeleton. If a simpler language with built-in tools is perfectly sufficient for your goal.
Don't overbuild.
And finally, fight the urge to over-engineer. Embrace the minimalist blank canvas and start your project with a flat structure. Wait until the complexity is actually earned before you start organizing it.
Such an important lesson.
So what does this all mean for you? It means the next time you are faced with a complex new project, whether you are learning a new language, structuring a major proposal at work, or even just reorganizing a room in your house, try to approach it like Ang approaches that 3-line Go file.
Keep it simple.
Start flat. Strip away the prepackaged frameworks and the assumptions about how it should look. Find your blank canvas, identify the absolute simplest first step, and allow the structure of the project to grow organically.
This raises an important question, though, and it's a concept I want to leave the listener to mull over long after we wrap up.
I'm intrigued.
If you scroll all the way down to the very bottom of Ang's blog, past the 15 years of archives and the sprawling lists of projects, there is a small section titled Do Support.
Okay.
It is a carefully curated list of organizations that Ang believes are worth championing. It features groups like the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the Free Software Foundation, the Tor Project, and Wikipedia.
All big advocates for open knowledge and privacy.
Right. And this list sits directly alongside Ang's own sponsorship links for platforms like GitHub, CPAN, PyPI, Spotify, and YouTube.
A really interesting mix of the open web and major platforms.
Exactly. When we look closely at the raw materials we choose to build our projects with, like an open source programming language, and we look at the organizations we actively champion, what does our own personal do support list say about our core values regarding digital freedom and open knowledge?
That's a deep question.
Ang builds software on a literal blank canvas, relying entirely on free open source tools, while simultaneously advocating for the organizations that fight to protect the open web. So, as you go out to start your next endeavor, ask yourself, how does the way you build and the specific tools you choose to build with reflect a broader commitment to keeping the world of knowledge free, open, and accessible to everyone?
That is a phenomenal thought to end on. The tools we choose aren't just tools, they are a reflection of our underlying philosophy.
Well said.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope Ang's old software plumber journey has inspired you to clear away the digital clutter, embrace the necessary struggle of learning something completely new, and maybe even start a flat-structured passion project of your own. Stay curious, keep tinkering, and keep learning. We'll catch you on the next one.